Someone out there has fallen for you, and the age gap between you feels so large that it changes everything you thought you understood about love. And by the end of this video, I'm going to give you one simple test, a test almost nobody talks about, that will tell you in under 60 seconds whether what you're feeling is real connection or something else wearing its face. Stay until the end for that, because I promise you, once you hear it, you will use it for the rest of your life. I'm a psychologist, and today we're not talking about romance the way movies show it. We're talking about power, projection, and the parts of your nervous system that fall in love before your mind ever gets a vote. Before we go further, if this is your first time here, hit subscribe, because what I'm about to walk you through touches almost everyone at some point, whether it's 5 years, 15 years, or more. Now imagine someone older or someone younger starts looking at you like you're the only interesting person in the room. It feels intense, it feels rare, almost unreal, and your mind immediately starts doing something dangerous. It starts filling in the blanks with meaning. This must be fate, it whispers. This must be different. But research on attraction tells a more complicated story. Psychologist Arthur Aaron, who spent decades studying what actually makes people fall in love, found that attraction spikes hardest, not from similarity, but from what he called self-expansion. The feeling that being near someone is making your entire world bigger. And here's the twist almost nobody mentions. Age gaps are one of the most efficient self-expansion triggers that exist, because the other person's whole life stage feels like unexplored territory. That rush you're feeling isn't necessarily love. It might be your brain lighting up because it just found a shortcut to feeling expanded, without ever checking if the two of you actually fit. So, let's talk about what's really happening underneath. When someone significantly older connects with someone younger, there is very often a psychological exchange taking place. One person is chasing vitality, novelty, the feeling of being young again, and the other is often chasing guidance, stability, the feeling of finally being taken seriously. That imbalance creates an electric charge, and your brain reads electricity as chemistry. But it is not always chemistry built on alignment. Sometimes it's chemistry built entirely on difference. And difference feels intoxicating precisely because it's unfamiliar. Anthropologist and love researcher Helen Fisher, who has spent her career mapping the brain chemistry of attraction, found that novelty directly spikes dopamine, the same neurotransmitter tied to craving and addiction, which means the racing heartbeat you're feeling when they text you back, that isn't proof of destiny. It's dopamine doing exactly what dopamine is built to do, chase what's uncertain. And this is loop number 1 I'm planting for you right now, because later in this video, I'm going to show you the exact moment where dopamine and real love split apart from each other, and it is not where you think. Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it for a second instead of scrolling past. When you think about them, are you replaying what they said? Or are you replaying how uncertain you felt waiting for them to say it? Type your honest answer in the comments, because I read every single one, and you'd be shocked how many people realize the answer mid-sentence while they're typing it. Here's where it gets deeper. When there's a large age gap, power doesn't have to be obvious to be present. It can be as quiet as one person feeling like they already have life figured out, and the other person feeling like they're still assembling the instructions. And once that imbalance exists, roles start forming without either person agreeing to them out loud. Mentor and student, protector and protected, teacher and admirer. Once roles like that settle in, feelings intensify because roles create structure, and structure feels like meaning. But structure built on imbalance isn't the same as structure built on equality. And that difference is exactly what determines whether this becomes something sustainable or something that quietly burns you out. Psychotherapist Esther Perel, who has spent decades studying desire and long-term relationships, talks about how desire actually needs distance and otherness to survive, which explains why age gap dynamics can feel so magnetic in the beginning. But Perel also warns that the same distance that fuels desire can, without emotional maturity on both sides, become the very thing that erodes trust later. Because otherness that isn't balanced with real understanding turns into distance you can't close. Now here's something almost no one explains correctly, and it's the second loop I promised you. If you have an anxious attachment style, this dynamic will hit you differently than if you're more avoidant. Attachment researcher Sue Johnson, who developed emotionally focused therapy, found that anxious attachment gets massively amplified by inconsistency, meaning if the person you're falling for runs hot and cold, deeply present one day, distant the next, your nervous system doesn't calm down, it escalates, it starts treating their attention like a resource it has to fight to keep. Age gaps often create natural inconsistency, because both people are operating on different emotional timelines, different priorities, different levels of life experience. So what feels like passion might actually be your attachment system going into overdrive, trying to stabilize something inherently unstable. And if you're more avoidant, that same unpredictability can feel like relief, because it keeps intimacy at a manageable distance until it doesn't, until you realize you've been protecting yourself from something that might have actually been safe. If you're finding this useful so far, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach someone who needs to hear it tonight. Someone who might be lying awake over analyzing a text message exactly like you used to. Let's talk about the illusion of speed, because in age gap relationships, things tend to move fast. Deep conversations early, confessions that feel too big for how long you've known each other. A sense that you've somehow known this person your whole life. But speed is not the same as depth. Psychologist Robert Sternberg, known for his triangular theory of love, described real, sustainable love as a balance of three things: intimacy, passion, and commitment built over time together. Age gap connections often front-load passion and intimacy through emotional intensity, while commitment, the part that actually requires consistency and shared direction, gets skipped entirely, because both people are too swept up in how significant it all feels to slow down and check if it's structurally sound. That's not always destined to fail, but it does mean the feeling of closeness you have right now might be running ahead of the actual relationship you've built. Here's a question worth sitting with. If you removed all the texting, all the late night conversations, all the emotional highs, and just looked at how this person shows up for you consistently, day after day, ordinary day after ordinary day, would you still call it love? Or would you be looking at something that only feels alive in its most intense moments? Comment below with one word that describes how you'd honestly answer that. Now, let's go somewhere most videos on this topic avoid completely: timing. Not emotional timing, life timing. Two people can have real feelings for each other and still be standing in completely different chapters of their lives. One person building a career, an identity, a sense of independence, while the other is already settled, already knows who they are, already has a rhythm to their days. That mismatch doesn't mean the connection isn't real. It means it's carrying an invisible weight that chemistry alone cannot resolve. And here's the part people don't want to hear. Questioning this is not betrayal, and it's not pessimism, it's clarity. The strongest relationships aren't the ones that avoid hard questions. They're the ones that can survive being asked them. So let's come back to that test I promised you at the very beginning, the one that takes under 60 seconds. Ask yourself this, not how do I feel around them, but how do I feel about myself after being around them consistently, not just in the high moments, but across the ordinary ones too. Real, grounded connection expands you. It's Arthur Aaron's self-expansion again, but the healthy version, where you leave feeling more like yourself, more capable, more secure. Projection and imbalance do the opposite. They leave you feeling like you have to shrink, perform, or chase to keep the connection alive. If being with them consistently makes you feel more like you, that's a genuinely good sign. If it consistently makes you feel like you're auditioning for their attention, that's your answer, no matter how intense it feels in the moment. Age gap attraction is not automatically wrong, and it's not automatically right. That's the part I need you to actually hold on to after this video ends. What matters is whether both people are meeting each other as equals, in respect, in emotional responsibility, and in honesty about what stage of life they're each actually in. If this connection is real, it will survive your clarity. It won't require you to abandon your instincts just to keep it alive. And if it does require that, then what you're feeling isn't love in its most grounded form. It's projection, timing, and dopamine dressed up as destiny. If this video gave you a new way to see your own situation, I'd genuinely love to know. Drop a comment telling me your age gap and what made you click on this video tonight. I read every single one of them. And if you know someone who needs to hear this exact message right now, someone who's been quietly overthinking a connection just like this, share this video with them. Subscribe if you want more videos like this one. Because next week, I'm breaking down the exact signs that tell you whether someone is falling for you or just falling for the idea of you. I'll see you in the next